Today we're going to be going over this week's Morphmarket Auctions, ending anywhere between Friday the 10th and Sunday the 12th. Hope you are all continuing to have a good year. Without wasting any time, we're going to go ahead and get right into the first auction, and this is actually a pretty cool opportunity here. We actually talked about this one on our live, and that would be this Sunset Breeder package. You want to start making sunsets right away without waiting? Well, here you go. This is a 1-to-1 het sunset, so 2 het sunsets. I actually took a count of this on our live at the female. This is the second picture here. It seems to be pretty light with a crazy pattern. Different from the male, for sure. And you can't really say that's because of the het sunset influence because, well, they're both het sunsets. Being proven breeders at that is really good. Looks like they just laid back in June, so they're about ready to start being paired again. 6 healthy eggs. You have a 1 in 4 chance of getting a sunset. Now, buying something like this with some value to it that can start making you sunsets right off the bat is pretty good, especially from a saving money standpoint, right? Because you can still make really cool things, start an investment project in sunset without breaking the bank. Not the most ideal thing to go head to head by any means, but you can test for sunset through our GI now. If you use our code Rhino, you can actually send in 2 and get a buy one, get one. So you could buy 1 sunset, send another shed test from another baby that didn't hit a visual sunset on, and you'd get that second one for free. And you just kind of pay for one of them, and then in the notes you type code Rhino and you include that snake's unique ID. We go through like a number system, so if it was born this year, it'd be like 25, the clutch number, so 01, and then the number and gender it is. So if it was a male, it'd be M, and it's the first male, it'd be 1. So that's just what we use, but there's plenty of ways you can do it. Just assign them a unique ID number and say that you also want to test for sunset on this additional one using code Rhino. But yeah, go ahead and take advantage of that, especially if you're going to get an animal like this. And you can start making those sunsets pretty much right away. You get these animals in, you can immediately pair them together. They look pretty healthy, of good size. The male actually looks pretty darn big for a male at that. I happen to notice the first year females usually lay less than what they normally do for their second season. I had one that actually laid 3 eggs its first season and then laid 12 the next. So the fact that this one laid 6 healthy eggs, it doesn't mean that it'll lay more, but 6 is the average, right? And that's pretty good. So you're already starting out an average. This might have been the female's first year, if that's to be accurate, when it bred, and actually probably got the size pretty darn quick. Now, if this is its first year, it's 6 eggs. Regardless, that's really good. 6 eggs is the average, and if it is its first year, I tend to find that they lay a little bit more in the second year. It's not always to say that that's going to be the case, but it's just been my experience with it. So if you want to start making cool sunsets like this one here, and you don't want to break the bank doing so, you can still make a really cool investment project. And eventually, maybe if you start continuing on and hets are no longer needed for you, that's fine too. You can do exactly what they're doing here and give someone else the same exact opportunity that they are doing here for you, and you can part with them now that you have proven breeder visuals, if that is something that you would eventually do. Or you can hang on to them because they're proven, and a het female is always going to be useful. Maybe the male eventually though. Next up from Brad Boa Reptiles would be this Fire Clown Het puzzle. Really nice, beautiful looking animal. Fire, I think, works pretty well with Clown in general, brightens them up and cleans them up quite a bit, almost like a microdose of Desert Ghost is there. The het puzzle is good in this female here because you could start in a project with either puzzles and clowns, or however you want to go about it, but you know, maybe getting a puzzle boy that's het for Clown, if that's the sort of project that you want to go into. And if you were wondering what a puzzle clown looked like, look no further than right here. It does incredibly similar things as regular puzzle, only with the clown head. So very, very nice. I love the whitewashed bellies that they tend to bring in as well. But a pretty good opportunity if that's the sort of project that you wanted to work. Moving right along to this Hypo Fire Redhead. You know, you see Redhead a lot in clown combos, but I haven't noticed it a lot in anything else. So this is a really cool and great opportunity to start working this project into other things as well. Even if eventually maybe you do start making double hets and such like that with this as well. But Redhead is something that's very subtle by itself. You do notice it. It does give it a slightly oranger head in pretty much every ball python that it's in. And if you look right here, you can see the orange head right there. Redhead is something like, as I mentioned, is very subtle, but when you start getting into combos, it just really, really shines. Very similar to how Lace, Yellow Belly, Russo, and I could go on and on. This is not a gene that you should look at and say, well, it doesn't do all that much, but it's bringing in all these nice oranges and such into the animal, as you can see even down the body of the animal. Once you start getting combos together and start pushing out things that really influence the pattern and whatnot, you start to see this red head begins to spread down the rest of the body and really influences the color. I've even noticed it influence the granulation in clowns and such. That's why it's so popular in the clown Clown gene. But really cool project. Redhead is not something that you should sleep on, and Hypo is always an amazing, incredible gene. Speaking of lace, we're looking next at this Pastel Lace Clown. This is a male here, which means you'd be able to breed lace into a lot of your collection. And trust me, you want that. Lace will literally work well with everything. It is an enhancement type gene. It kind of serves to lighten it up, I guess, but it's more so an enhancement type look, like another flavor of the Desert Ghost. And these subtle genes, like I said with Redhead, should not be slept on. Taking a look at some of these lace combos right here, like with this Enchi Spotnose White Lace Clown. Now that's 2 copies of the lace, and you start to really see it right there. Easily could fool some people into saying that this is a Desert Ghost. It is really clean, bright, a beautiful type animal. Comboing lace with anything is just incredible. You can see you can do a cleaner version of it, but you can see here this a little bit of a dirty version. Even though the snake brightens it and cleans it, it's more highlighting the potential beauty and bringing it out, showing it to its full potential. But at the same time, while this is clean, the contrast here gives way to the fact that there are aspects of this that are kind of dirty, and there's nothing wrong with that. Having some chaos is actually really cool, but you see near the belly, there's just a lot going on down there. It's not very neat necessarily, but that's not meaning that in a bad way. That's actually incredible. It's very, very busy down there. I love contrast, and if anybody watches this channel, you know that I say contrast is king, and it's very important, and contrast lends its way to both the pattern being clean up here, being chaotic down here, being bright and clean in here, boldened by blacks. The colors are contrasted. The literal pattern is contrasted in the fact that you have a little bit more chaos and clean up here, and you have shadowing as well on top of all that. Just really beautiful all together, and that's the potential when you're talking about lace. So when you look at an animal like this and you see it and you're just like, it looks like a little bit better pastel, don't sleep on these subtle genes. When they start to get put into other things, they aren't so subtle anymore. Moving right along to this Acid Axanthic VPI Het Clown. And acid is thought possibly to be the exact same thing as confusion. If it isn't the same exact thing, they pretty much do the exact same thing. And that's create an absolutely wild and bonkers pattern, which also seems to lend itself to put some pattern in the belly of the animal, which is something I think is so phenomenal. You just don't see that. It's like a hognose belly in a way in many cases, especially when you get it in clown. And speaking of that, you have the Het Clown right here being in this female. Get yourself a clown Het Axanthic male if that's the sort of project you want to start to work, and you could start making some incredibly unique and wild looking animals. The only thing that this is missing in my opinion is Desert Ghost, because the Axanthic Clown Desert Ghosts that I saw were so beautiful. We saw one at one of the Tinleys from Canova. If it had acid in it, that would be even more crazy, because you'd have that pitch black and the stark white, the most clean transitions I've ever seen in terms of a contrast of each other, and it has aged so incredibly well. Now if you just bonkers up that pattern like what acid would do, that would just make it even more crazy. And that's some of the potential you're looking at right here. I'm kind of shooting ahead with thinking about Desert Ghost, but starting with an Axanthic Clown acid would not be a bad thing at all. Moving right along to this ready to breed Monsoon pair, another pairing right here. Now this one has a bit more cost than with the Sunsets we were looking at, and there's a reason for that. It is because the Monsoons by themselves sell for quite a bit. I think the lowest I've ever seen one go is just under 5,000 on a Palm Street auction, ironically, which usually will be a little bit cheaper. In general, I see them go for a bit more than that, honestly, and they will still sell for more than that. And so for the cost that they're asking for a reserve here for these hets, that when you pair it is going to give you a very high chance of hitting one of these and making your money back immediately, because you'll keep it, or maybe you'll sell it regardless. You have saved yourself that much money at that point, and you have animals to show for it. It looks like it's a pretty good breeder at that. Has always laid more than the average. Lastly, laid 9 eggs, so it will need a little bit more time, but you should be able to do a late pairing on these. The male is a Banana Mojave Pinstripe Het Monsoon, and the female is a Pastel Het Monsoon. Male right here and female right here. So some cool stuff that you can make here. Again, you know, eventually down the road, the Monsoon price will come down, and maybe eventually you move on from the male because you hit your visual and no longer is he as useful, but you could move on from him and give someone else the same opportunity as you have here. Again, yeah, that's a high price tag, but you're gonna make that back immediately within the first pairing, even with 1 in 4 odds going head to head. Head to head is not ideal, but when you're talking these types of prices, that might be what you need to do. If you're wondering what a Monsoon might look like, well, look no further. It is about the most bonkers pattern you can get. It completely blows it up. I believe it gets its name from the fact that it looks like a bunch of raindrops, so aka a monsoon. It is chaotic. It is the most intense destruction of the normal pattern of a bull python. Full stop. There's nothing that does it quite as much as this. It does it so well, in fact, that I would think that the only thing you can really do with the Monsoon, at least I surmise, is affect the color of it. And there's a lot of different avenues you can do there, but affecting the pattern of it at this point, I mean, what else is there to do? Clean it up. But you don't want that. That's what's so amazing about Monsoon. But there is so much stuff to do with this. And as the prices started to come down, more people are getting involved and starting to have their own ideas and creating cool animals with this project. And then speaking about one combo that I think is really good is the Monsoon Clown combos. And this is a double het female that's about halfway to size. No reserve on this. This could be a really good addition to your projects, especially since it's got a good amount of size. Not quite halfway to size, but good size on it. This girl here, if paired to either another double het or, you know, maybe you get some visual like a het clown, het monsoon to save some money, because I can almost guarantee you that the clown monsoons will be mostly unavailable, and if they are available, they'll be quite expensive. So you might need to go head to head on some things here, just out of necessity of whether it be price or something like not being able to find one. Either way, if you're interested in finding what a clown monsoon looks like, since this is just a double het, it is nuts. It like takes that crazy pattern, kind of almost expands it in certain areas, so it gives you some contrast there, kind of blows them up and keeps them a little bit bigger in the middle. You have a pretty solid dorsal stripe going down the middle, and then look at that head. It puts all of that craziness on the head, because with the monsoons, they have a normal head for the most part. You see there, it just kind of stops being a monsoon right about the neck, but not with the clown monsoons. It's one of the most intense looking animals I've ever seen. When you're talking about an exotic animal like a bull python, this is the exotic of the exotic, and that's the potential you have with a girl like this in your collection. Back to another Axanthic combo. I normally don't show a lot of Axanthics on here, but this one here has a lot of interest in it. It is a lightning pied, which is a Axanthic pied, but it also is het clown. It might also be OD and blade on top of that. Blade is kind of similar to Enchi. I can't claim to completely understand that genetic. I know it's almost attached at the hip of clown in many cases. Some people even think that it might be some sort of a variation of clown or something like that, but I can't claim to completely understand that one. But either way, this is a double recessive that has a het clown in it. So several different ways you could work this project, since again the triple het could be very difficult to procure, but you could get a clown pied that's het Axanthic. You could get an Axanthic clown that's het pied, but definitely kind of work those hets against each other if that's the way you want to go. So that way you're guaranteeing better odds and guaranteeing that you're hitting hets on anything that you don't succeed in a visual on. That's really ideal. It's still a baby, but it's pretty well started here. On top of that, there is a reserve price on this, and we don't know what it is. It's already pretty darn high, so I could never guess what the reserve price is. But what I say is that you bid up to where you're comfortable, and then don't just bid either. Don't just bid the max you're about to pay, because maybe it'll end a little bit sooner than that. So say you want to do up to $2,000, don't just do $2,000. Bid it up in like $25 increments and climb up there. That way, if the reserve price does fall off, you can immediately stop there, and it becomes like a regular auction at that point. If someone wants to outbid you, then they can. There are 7 bids on this, so somebody is definitely interested, and you can see people kind of jumping it up. I would never make the jump like that, because when you bid on this, it becomes that. So if somebody comes along and bids $2,000, it is now $2,000. And if the auction reserve price ended at $16, well, you're spending $400 more than you needed to. However, we'll never know that, because that is not made public. But if that's the sort of project you want to get into, this is a very nice one. You can kind of see here what an Axanthic clown pied would look like, and they're very nice. Lots of cool expression, lots of awesome contrast here. Again, the only thing it's really missing is desert ghost to make it one of the most incredible animals on the planet Earth. But even just like this, it's already incredible. So you can just imagine what that sort of project could do for you. They're incredibly rare, any triple recessive, and sometimes, you know, you get all these recessives or genes on top of each other and they don't work well together. Sometimes stacking the most stuff doesn't add up to anything substantial, but in this case it most certainly does. Taking a quick pit stop on the Hognoses, and when I say quick, I really mean it. There's not a whole bunch this week, so we're only going to highlight a couple of them today and show you some cool stuff. Starting with one of my favorites would be these extreme red albinos. The way albinos work and look in Hognoses, it about makes it my favorite morph in Hognoses anyways. Their standard albino gene, in my opinion, even though I'm a ball python guy for the most part, I do Hognoses, and I actually prefer the look of the standard albino here than to the standard albino in ball pythons. It's insane. This is deep red, and especially since polygenic traits like extreme red are a thing with Hognoses. There's not as much when it comes to ball pythons and polygenic traits, but it certainly does show itself off here. You get basically what is a actual maroon red, maybe like a brick kinda, but a red. The way this works is with a recessive, obviously anything it breeds to will pass on one copy of albino, which means it won't show unless you're breeding it to another albino or you breed it to a het, and then it'd be the exact same way that it works in ball pythons. But extreme red, being a polygenic trait, is always going to show its influence in some way, which is really cool. You're always going to get some level of influence in this red going to its offspring. Next up would be this Conda Arctic albino, which is also possible het for sable, and that's important, and we'll get to that. But Arctic seems to light it up. You can definitely see how this one's a little bit more light. In a way, it almost looks a little bit like the ball python colors of an albino, just not quite as yellowy in most cases. Conda actually reduces the pattern and it has this looking kind of like an anaconda pattern. It's just where, of course, it gets its name. But the sable there, if it ends up being sable, is really nice. It's a dark morph, and it works so darn good with albino, so much so that it is probably arguably still the most popular combination in Hognoses. And you'll see what I mean here. That is called a sunburst. This happens to also be extreme red as well, but you can see just how vibrant and beautiful and what deep saturation of color you have here. Definitely lives up to its name of sunburst. There's no doubt about that. Moving back into ball pythons, there's a few of them here I want to show off because there's some proven breeders here from Frame Shift Reptiles this week, and it's not all the time that you get something like this that you can pop into your collection and start going. This one laid 6 eggs past season and is already ready to go. So if you want to start making some combos with Spotnose, like going for your very first Batman, this would be a great way to do it. It's already ready to go. You pick up this girl, you can pair her up with a Leopard Clown, and you got a really good chance of hitting a Batman. I would argue that you should probably get a few more genes in your mail to do that, or try to get some extra influence along the way to create something even more cool and unique. But very cool opportunity for somebody who wants to start jumping in and creating some cool animals without having to break the bank. Got another one here, a Phantom Clown. Looks like it laid back in September, so it needs a little bit more time to eat. Something else to keep in mind is you get free shipping here, so I don't know how that would work with big proven breeders. It's harder to buy a bunch from one breeder and ship them out in one box, but that really isn't a concern since it's free shipping anyways. So that's pretty nice if you wanted to possibly bid on a few different ones from Frame Shift here. Because even more here, a proven pied het desert ghost girl. This one also laid 7 in September, is back on eating. A little bit bigger there, but if you're working that desert ghost pied project, this is a nice girl to get. Get yourself a male with some great genetics in him as well, and you can start pumping out some desert ghost pieds right off the bat. Back into clown would be this GHI Banana YB Clown. This one's pretty darn packed, and this is something that even I might be pretty interested in. This is not a proven breeder though, so that's something to be considered. It is very close to breeding size though, so it could be ready very soon, possibly even as early as mid to late next year, or definitely I would imagine by the next season. And there's a lot of different routes you go here. Banana clowns are just so spectacular, and the fact that you have GHI along in it, GHI is one of my favorite genes. Banana clowns are obviously amazing. Yellow belly is a really great gene to have in clown. There's so much to love about this. This might be, of the ones that are here, all these proven breeders, the most packed that you can get right off the bat. The price will go up, but you're going to be able to create some amazing things with this, and I still think it's going to be gotten at a steal with what it's at right now. 2 days left as of recording. I definitely think this has the potential to help somebody out big time. Like I said, of these proven breeders up there, it is potentially the most packed. This one here is a black pewter. It's probable Blackhead and Woookie as well. It is Het Clown and 50% Het Lavender Albino and Pied. I would most definitely send this in for some shed tests. You can test for Woookie, you can test for Het Pied, you can test for Lavender Albino, because you could potentially have a Holy Grail maker here. And not just a regular Holy Grail maker, because you've got so many other genetics at play here. The Black Pastel, and if Woookie and Blackhead are in there too, which I think that you got a good chance when I'm seeing this. I think it is. But like I said, you can test for Woookie, and who knows when a Blackhead test might be able to come out as well. Regardless, I don't think that should change your plans for breeding this. You should definitely send in for a shed test on Lavender and Pied, because picking up a male for this, it's about the size where you want to start shopping for a male right off the bat. So that's really nice in the fact that obviously you're going to be looking for a visual clown, but do you also find something maybe with Pied and with Lavender and you start going for those Holy Grails? That would be so cool. Blackhead works so great with Lavender Albino on top of that, with Woookie, with all these. This would be probably one of the most bright, beautiful animals ever created. If you're wondering what a Holy Grail looks like, this is it right here. Just one of the most beautiful animals I've ever seen. Lavender Albino seems to combine with Clown a whole heck of a lot better than the regular Albino does. I think it's just perfect. It's so beautiful, and the contrast is just so incredible. It's literally a sherbet orange. Awesome animal that you could create here potentially. And now granted, remember, when you buy something like this, you are taking a chance, because you don't know if those will prove out. You definitely want to send them in. Regardless, even if this ends up being just Het Clown, there's so much potential here. 80 bucks right now, that's a steal. Take a look at what this ends at and give it a good consider, because I know I will, depending on where that's at in 48 hours from right now. Here's a really nice one here. No reserve on this. An Orange Dream Leopard Desert Ghost Pied, male at that. This would be a really good one to get as a breeder. We talked about it earlier, the Desert Ghost Pieds. I believe that there was a proven one right here. This would be a good one to get for that eventually as well. Even you can kind of see what this does to it. Just so much saturation of color in here, just pitch blacks, really beautiful crisp oranges, and just clean throughout. The Leopard and the Orange Dream are always a great tag team combo, and they tag team great with Desert Ghost, and Pied literally pretty much works well with almost every single gene on the planet, not named Bamboo or Champagne. Really cool opportunity to create some animals in the Desert Ghost Pied project. Here's one here that's got a reserve price pretty much solely based on its uniqueness, and it's called Freckles. That is super cool. Now, with that being said, it is a paradox, and some Pieds I've seen do this, but not very many of them. Sometimes you get little bits of this flecking. In fact, I have a few that have a bit of this in there, but nothing like this. This is insane. If you could reproduce this right here, this is like the cow retics that are out there. It's just insane. If you had this available, this would be Monsoon levels of pricing and demand. This is a big boy at that, so I don't know if it's proven or anything like that, but either way, it looks, oh, it's first year breeding. No clue it'll produce yet. I'm sure it's just a Pied, but there is a reserve on this. This is pretty much based solely on the uniqueness of this animal. It is very unlikely that you'll be able to reproduce this paradox, although I will say that I do think that there are certain lines that throw paradox a little bit more, and quite often they are attached to what I would say to the Pied and the albino genes. Skittles is a very famous one. That's probably the most unique paradox that's ever been created, but I have seen a lot of people with collections that just produce a ton of paradox. Flynn Reptiles is someone we really like talking to all the time, a good friend. They have produced so many paradoxes over the years. So I don't believe that paradox is something that can quote unquote be reproduced. It's not like Pied or Pastel or any of these other genes, but I do believe that there's something to be said about certain lines, the paradox just kind of throwing itself out there a little bit more. Otherwise, there's no explanation as to why people would be able to create a decent amount of paradoxes in their collection like I've seen. But this animal is super cool. Now, is it something for a breeding project? It's very unlikely, but it is super cool and unique. And if somebody wants something super cool and unique, gotta beat that reserve price, but this is it. And finally, for our last one would be this Redhead Spotnose Leopard Fire Yellow Belly Het Clown. This has got it all other than the visual clown. It's very, very beautiful. Look at the pattern. It's just so awesome. And it's got a good size to it too. So another one here that you won't have to put as much work into to get to size. There is a reserve price again, but like I said before, bid it up to what you're comfortable in increments so that you don't bite the bullet and end up paying a lot more than maybe what you had to. Again, with the reserves, if you take it up to say, I don't know, 700, let's just say that's the number you want to stop at. If you take it up there and the reserve reserve price hasn't ended and you don't want to go any higher, no biggie, because if nobody else takes up on that, the reserve just ends and the auction, nobody wins it and it's void. Redhead, as we talked about earlier, is incredible in clown and very subtle in the most part, but start to take a look at some of the crazy potential you can get, like this right here. This is just a redhead clown, but this does so much. It creates this crazy rusty dirt road down its back. It kind of reminds me of something from like a western or something like that. I don't know why, but it's just so crazy and beautiful. Like rusty barbed wire going down it. And look how dirty and chaotic the sides are. Although everyone wants to talk about how clean things are and how good that is, sometimes dirty and chaotic is the answer. And you can see that here. Look what it does to the head of a clown too. Just very nice. Just one copy of Redhead is doing this. You can see what it does even in things like with just Stranger and Spotnose. Look at that crazy rusty undertone. It just exudes like it's a volcano about to erupt. Just so incredible in what it does to the color. And it does affect the pattern too. Although most of the affection of the pattern on here is from the Stranger and the Spotnose comboing. But you can see that red underneath. That is most certainly from the Redhead. And that'll do it for this week's Morphmarket Auctions. So if you won something from one of these, whether it be the past one or this one here, let us know. We'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you wanted to learn more about the genetics we talked about here today, you can actually check some of our videos on genetics out right here and here.